The security feed showed 3 human ships decoupling from Unity Station's central hub. No warning, no formal declaration, just the cold silence of engines powering up and diplomatic seals being retracted from their docking clamps. Ambassador Chen's office stood empty, his personal effects already gone, leaving only the faint scent of coffee that would never be replaced. Queen Varash of the Karate Dominion watched from her observation deck as the last human vessel turned its nose toward the edge of Council space, its hull reflecting the station's lights one final time before the jump engines engaged. The stars bent. The ship vanished. Humanity was gone. Your Majesty. Prime Counselor Thexer approached with his usual shuffling gait, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. The humans have transmitted their final statement. It's brief. She took the datapad. 5 words. We will remember your choice. What choice? Varish set the pad down carefully. We voted to maintain neutrality in their dispute with the Zenthi Collective. That's not a condemnation. They asked for support. We denied them. Thexer's translator collar clicked softly. They see no difference. The Queen turned back to the viewport. 87 species made up the Galactic Council. Humans had joined only 40 standard years ago, an eye blink in Council history. Aggressive. Brilliant. They'd brought fusion drive innovations that cut travel time by half, medical advances that saved billions, agricultural techniques that ended famine on 16 worlds, and now they were gone because the Council, in its ancient wisdom, had chosen procedure over friendship. How long before the supply chain disruptions began? She asked. Optimistic estimate. 2 weeks? Realistic?
5 days.
The Krathi military used human-designed shield generators on every vessel. The medical facilities relied on human antibiotics. The orbital farms surrounding her homeworld operated with human soil processors. 87 species had grown dependent on one species in less than half a century, and nobody had noticed until the humans walked away. Emergency Council session, Varish ordered. Now. Representatives from across known space materialized via hologram or arrived in person, filling the vast circular arena with a cacophony of languages and biochemistries. The air processors struggled to balance oxygen, methane, and ammonia requirements simultaneously. Varish took her place at the central podium, her royal guard standing at attention behind her. Captain Zek Mora met her eyes briefly, his expression unreadable behind his ceremonial mask. The human delegation has withdrawn from council space, Varish began without preamble. We need to discuss immediate consequences and long-term solutions. Senator Krill of the Aqueous Collective raised a tentacled appendage. With respect, Your Majesty, this is an overreaction. The humans are emotional. They'll return when they calm down. The humans are many things, Varish replied. Emotional, yes, also pragmatic. They didn't leave in anger, they left in disappointment. There's a difference. They abandoned their commitments. Ambassador Lorvex of the Silicon Brotherhood's voice crackled through his crystalline form. 38 trade agreements, 14 research partnerships, 7 defense pacts, all broken without negotiation. We broke faith first, the voice came from the upper galleries. Representative Maya Sung, one of the few humans who'd remained behind to finalize logistics. She descended the steps slowly, her blue council robes trailing behind her. You want to know why we left? I'll tell you exactly why. Varish nodded for her to continue. 6 months ago, human colony ships discovered a habitable world in the Outer Rim. We followed every protocol, filed every claim, waited for council approval. Maya's voice remained steady, but her hands clenched at her sides. The Zenthi Collective attacked those colony ships, destroyed 3 of them, killed 4,000 civilians. We brought evidence to this council. Video recordings, survivor testimony, wreckage analysis. We asked for one thing. Acknowledge that the Zenthi violated the settlement accords and imposed sanctions. Thexer protested. The evidence was perfect. You just didn't want to anger the Zenthi. Maya stepped into the central arena, facing Varish directly. My daughter was on the 2nd colony ship. She was 7 years old. Her name was Sarah. She wanted to be a xenobiologist. She learned 3 alien languages because she believed in what the council represented. The Zenthi turned her ship into debris, and this council voted that there was insufficient proof of hostile intent. Varish felt something cold settle in her chest. I didn't know. Nobody asked. Maya's eyes glistened, but her voice never wavered. That's the problem. You treated it like a procedural matter. Forms and protocols and political calculations. You forgot that behind every statistic are people like Sarah who believed the council stood for something. We asked you to choose justice. You chose convenience. So we chose to leave. Accusations flew between delegations. Blame shifted like sand. Varesh raised her hand, and centuries of royal authority silenced the chaos. Representative Sung, what would it take for humanity to return? You're still not listening, Your Majesty. We're not coming back. This isn't a negotiating tactic. Humanity is done with the Galactic Council. The stars outside the viewport continued their eternal dance, indifferent to the politics of lesser beings. Reports flooded in within 72 hours. The Rimward Alliance experienced power grid failures when human reactor technicians withdrew. The Centralian Medical Authority watched mortality rates climb as antibiotic supplies dwindled. Military drills across a dozen species revealed critical vulnerabilities in human-designed defense systems. Trade routes collapsed as human cargo vessels refused to honor Council shipping contracts. Even the station's environmental systems began showing strain without human maintenance teams. Varesh stood in her private chambers, reviewing the damage assessments. Captain Zekmora waited silently near the door, his presence a steady comfort amid the chaos. How bad? She asked without looking up. 17 planets reporting civilian unrest. 9 more experiencing supply shortages. The Council's reputation has collapsed among frontier worlds. 3 member species have threatened withdrawal if the situation isn't resolved. Zekmora paused. The humans built themselves into our infrastructure so thoroughly that removing them is like removing a species' cardiovascular system. They were planning this. I don't think they were. I think they genuinely believed in the Council's ideals and integrated themselves fully because of that belief. When we failed them, there was nothing holding them here. Varesh set down the datapad. I need to find them. That would be unprecedented. A reigning monarch leaving Council space without not as a queen. As someone who failed a child named Sarah and needs to understand what that failure means. Zekmora bowed. Then you'll need a ship and a very small crew. Something that won't attract attention. Can you arrange that? I can do better. I can come with you. The Queen finally met his eyes. That would violate every protocol regarding royal security. With respect, Your Majesty. Protocols are what created this mess. The ship was a decommissioned courier vessel, small enough to be unremarkable, but fast enough to matter. Varesh told the Council she was taking a brief sabbatical for spiritual reflection, a practice not uncommon among Korathi royalty. The Prime Counselor protested, but she overruled him with the authority her bloodline provided. Zekmora handpicked the crew. A pilot, an engineer, a medic, all trusted, all discreet. They departed Unity Station at dawn cycle, slipping away while the Council chamber debated emergency measures and blame distribution. Where exactly are we going? The pilot asked. The humans didn't leave coordinates. Earth, Varesh said. Their homeworld. If we want answers, we start at the source. The journey took 11 days through 9 different jump points. Varesh spent the time studying human history, their wars and peace treaties, their art and literature. She learned about the concept of democracy, their struggles with their own prejudices, their remarkable ability to overcome seemingly impossible obstacles. She read about the colony ship program, the dream of spreading humanity across the stars in cooperation with alien species. She found footage of children boarding the vessels, excited faces pressed against windows, waving goodbye to Earth while their parents spoke hopefully about building something better. She found a picture of Sarah Sung, 7 years old. Dark hair. Bright smile, holding a stuffed alien creature from one of the Council's member species. The ship dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. Earth hung in the distance, a blue-green jewel surrounded by orbital infrastructure. Defense platforms immediately locked weapons on their vessel. This is Earth Defense Command. Identify yourself and state your purpose. You have 20 seconds to comply. Zekmora nodded to Varesh. She activated the communication channel herself. This is Queen Varesh of the Korathi Dominion. I request an audience with the human leadership. I come without official council sanction or authority, just myself and a small crew. Silence stretched for 30 seconds. 60. The weapons remained locked. Finally, a different voice responded. Older. Male. Tired. Queen Varesh. This is Admiral Marcus Webb, Earth Defense Command. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know why you're here, and I don't particularly care. We're done with the Council and everything it represents. I'm not here on behalf of the Council. I'm here because I failed a child named Sarah Sung, and I need to understand what that means before more children die because of my choices. Another long pause. You came alone? 5 people total. A small ship. No weapons. No political authority beyond what I carry personally. That's either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. The Admiral's voice carried a hint of something that might have been respect. Hold your position. We're sending an escort. 3 human corvettes appeared, sleek and dangerous, their hulls bearing scars from recent combat. They formed up around Voracious' ship and guided them toward Earth. The Queen watched the planet grow larger, seeing the sprawling cities and green spaces, the orbital elevators and defense stations. Humanity had built all this themselves in just a few thousand years. What could they have accomplished with the Council's full support? The escort brought them to a military station in high orbit. The docking procedure was efficient and professional. As Voracious disembarked, a human honor guard waited, but their weapons remained holstered. Admiral Webb stood at the front, a man in his 60s with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. Your Majesty. He didn't bow. Welcome to Earth. I hope you understand the risk you've taken coming here. I understand that risk is sometimes necessary for truth. Webb studied her for a moment, then nodded. Follow me. Voracious noticed immediately how different it felt from Council facilities. Human stations favored function over form, clean lines, and practical design. Crew members moved with purpose, their expressions focused. Nobody gawked at the alien queen walking among them. They simply acknowledged her presence and continued their duties. Webb brought them to a conference room overlooking Earth. The view is breathtaking. You wanted to understand, Webb said, gesturing to a seat. So let's talk about Sarah Sam and the 4,000 others like her, and why humanity decided the Council wasn't worth our children's lives. Voracious sat. Zekmora took position behind her, ever vigilant. The rest of her crew waited outside. I read her file, the Queen began. I read about all of them. The Council's voting record. The evidence presented. I understand now that we failed objectively, not just emotionally, but I need to understand why you didn't fight harder to stay. Why you walked away instead of demanding change from within. Webb leaned back, his expression thoughtful. Your Majesty, how old is the Galactic Council? Approximately 14,000 standard years. And in those 14,000 years, how many times has the Council substantially changed its core operating procedures? Varesh opened her mouth, then closed it. I don't know. We researched it thoroughly before we joined. The answer is twice. Once during the Varl Plague when the entire Council almost collapsed. Once during the War of Burning Stars when half the member species nearly went extinct. Both times it took catastrophic loss of life before the Council adapted. We realized something important. The Council doesn't evolve through dialogue, it only changes through crisis. So you created a crisis? No, Webb's voice hardened. The Zenthi created a crisis when they murdered our civilians. The Council created a crisis when it chose politics over justice. We simply refused to be part of a system that values procedure more than people. That's not creating crisis, that's drawing a line. And the consequences, the supply chain failures, the systems breaking down across Council space, are not our responsibility. We shared our technology freely. We integrated our systems openly. We did everything the Council asked and more. But we will not be held hostage by our own generosity. If the Council can't function without us, that says more about the Council than it does about humanity. Voracious felt the weight of his words. You're punishing billions for the Council's failure. We're protecting our own because the Council wouldn't. There's a difference.
Webb stood, walking to the viewport.
Do you know what happened after we left? The Zenthi attacked 2 more frontier colonies. Not human ones. Smaller species. Less able to defend themselves. The Council's debating the evidence right now, running it through committees and subcommittees while people die. That's what we left behind. I didn't know. 'Cause you're still inside the system. You still think in terms of procedures and protocols? Out here, we think in terms of survival and justice. The Council has forgotten what those words mean. Silence settled over the room. Earth turned slowly beneath them, beautiful and indifferent. Voracious thought about her own people, the Korathi Dominion's long history of honor and duty. What would her ancestors say about this moment? About a queen who traveled across the stars to confront her own failure? What would it take, she asked quietly. Not for humanity to return. I understand that's not possible. But what would it take to prevent this from happening to another species? To ensure that no more Sarahs die because the Council values politics over protection? Webb turned from the viewport. You'd have to burn it down and build something better. That's not an answer. That's abdication, is it? The Admiral moved closer, his presence intense, The Council has had 14,000 years to get this right. Instead, it's become a bureaucracy that serves itself first and its members second. Real change would mean dismantling power structures that have existed longer than most species' recorded histories. It would mean accepting that the old ways are fundamentally broken. Are you prepared to do that? Varesh met his gaze.
I don't know.
But I'm prepared to try. Then you'll fail. Webb's expression softened slightly. Not because you lack courage or conviction, but because the system is designed to resist exactly what you're proposing. The moment you threaten real change, the Council will unite against you. You'll be isolated, discredited, removed from power, and nothing will change. So, what do you suggest? That I give up before I start? I suggest you decide what you value more, your position or your principles, because you can't keep both. The words hit like a physical blow. Varesh had been queen for 37 standard years. Her entire life had been preparation for leadership, service to her people, maintenance of ancient traditions. The crown she wore represented 4,000 years of unbroken lineage. To risk that for abstract principles seemed foolish. But to maintain power while children like Sarah died seemed monstrous. I need time to think. Earth isn't going anywhere. Webb moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, Your Majesty, you're the first Council representative to come here seeking understanding instead of demanding compliance. That means something. Maybe not enough to change anything, but something. He left. Zekmora remained standing behind Varesh's chair, a silent presence. You're thinking about doing something dramatic, the captain said after a moment. I'm thinking about what honor means. Real honor, not the ceremonial version we practice in court. Your Majesty, if you challenge the Council directly, they will destroy you politically. Your own people might turn against you. Dominion could face sanctions, isolation. Everything you've built could collapse. I know. Varesh stood, moving to the viewport. But if I do nothing, I'm complicit. Every death that follows, every injustice the Council ignores, becomes part of my legacy. What's the point of power if I'm too afraid to use it for what's right? That's a very human way of thinking. Perhaps that's the point. They stayed on the station for 3 days. Webb arranged meetings with human leaders, diplomats who'd resigned from their council positions, scientists who'd withdrawn their research partnerships. Each conversation reinforced the same theme. Humanity hadn't left in anger, but in profound disappointment. They'd believed the Council represented something noble and discovered it was just another political machine optimizing for its own survival. On the third day, Maya Sung arrived. She entered the conference room quietly, her face older than her years, grief written in every line. Representative Sung. Varesh stood immediately. I'm honored. Don't be. Maya's voice was flat. I came because Admiral Webb said you might actually listen. Most council members just want to argue. I'm done arguing. I'm trying to understand. Maya sat down heavily. My daughter loved learning about other species. She studied Karathi literature, read all the classical texts in the original language. She was fascinated by your concept of Tal Shara, the weight of responsibility that comes with power. She asked me once if the council practiced Tal Shara. I told her yes, because I believed it. Her voice cracked. I lied to my daughter about the council's values, and then the council's cowardice got her killed. Varesh felt something break inside her chest. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't change the system that killed her. Sorry is what people say when they want to feel better without actually doing anything. You're right. The Queen's voice remained steady despite the pain. Words without action are meaningless. So I'm asking you, if you could rebuild the council from nothing, what would it look like? Maya looked up, surprised. Maya looked up, surprised. That's not a realistic question. Humor me anyway. She thought for a long moment. It would have teeth. Real enforcement mechanisms, not just recommendations. It would prioritize protection of civilians over diplomatic convenience. It would have transparent decision-making processes, not backroom political deals. It would hold member species accountable for violations, regardless of their political power or economic influence. And it would remember that every decision affects actual people with actual lives, not just abstract populations on datapad reports. That would require completely restructuring 14,000 years of institutional practice, which is why it won't happen. The council is what it is. Accepting that is the first step to moving past it. What if I tried anyway? Maya studied her carefully. Then you'd be crazy. Or brave. Possibly both. But you'd also be alone. The council will crush anyone who threatens its power structure. Unless other species are as tired of the status quo as humanity is, maybe. But convincing them would mean proving the Council is fundamentally broken. That's not something you can do with speeches. You'd need a demonstration so undeniable that even the most conservative elements couldn't ignore it. Thank you, Representative Sung. You've given me exactly what I needed. What's that? Clarity. The journey back to Unity Station took 12 days. Voracious used every moment to plan, to analyze, to prepare. Zekmora watched her work with growing concern. Your Majesty, whatever you're planning, it's going to cost you everything. Just everything that doesn't matter. She looked up from her datapad. Zekmora, how many species in the Council have experienced injustice similar to humanity's? Complaints filed, evidence presented, action denied. At least 30 that I know of personally. Probably more. Contact them, quietly. Tell them the Queen of the Karathi Dominion is calling an emergency session, and they should attend in person if possible. That will alert the Council leadership that you're organizing something. Good. Let them worry. They arrived at Unity Station to find the political landscape dramatically shifted. The Prime Councilor had convinced a majority coalition to pass emergency measures granting the Council expanded powers to address the human crisis, including authority to seize human assets and redistribute them among member species. It was exactly the wrong approach, treating humanity's departure as a resource problem instead of a moral failure. Perfect. Varesh called her emergency session for the following day. The council chamber filled with representatives, some curious, others hostile, all wondering what the Karathi Queen intended. She'd never been particularly vocal in council politics, preferring to work through diplomatic channels rather than public declarations. This departure from her usual approach had everyone on edge. She took the central podium wearing full royal regalia, the crown of 1,000 stars catching the chamber's lights. Zekmora stood at his position, but she'd noticed he'd brought the rest of the royal guard. All 20 of them, unprecedented for a council session. Honored representatives, Varesh began, her voice carrying through the chamber's acoustics. I've called this session to discuss the human crisis, but not in the way you expect. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Thexer looked alarmed. The Prime Councilor has proposed seizing human assets to address supply shortages. This approach treats a symptom while ignoring the disease. We did not lose humanity because of resource disputes. We lost them because we failed them morally and were too proud to admit it. Your Majesty, Thexer interrupted, this is hardly the time for philosophy. We have real crises to address.
We do.
Varesh pulled out a datapad. The Zenthi Collective attacked the Allurian agricultural stations 6 months before they hit the human colonies. The Allurians brought evidence to this council. We declared it inconclusive. The Zenthi struck again. 4,000 Allurian farmers died. Where was justice? An Allurian representative stood, tentacles quivering with emotion. Your Majesty speaks truth. The crystalline hegemony discovered vast mineral deposits in contested space 2 years ago, Varesh continued. The Vortan clans claimed the territory despite clear hegemony priority under settlement accords. The council voted for joint development, which the Vortans interpreted as permission to take everything. Where was enforcement? The council betrayed our claim. One by one, Varesh listed injustices. 37 cases spanning the last 5 years alone. Each time, the council had chosen political expediency over principle. Each time, smaller species had been sacrificed to avoid confronting larger powers. Each time, the system had protected itself instead of those it claimed to serve. The chamber erupted. Accusations flew. Long-suppressed grievances burst into the open. Thexer tried to restore order, but the damage was done. Varesh had ripped away the council's carefully maintained facade and exposed the rot beneath. This is chaos, Senator Krill shouted. You're destroying everything. No, Varesh replied calmly. I'm revealing what's already been destroyed. The council died long before humanity left. We've just been operating its corpse through ritual and tradition. How dare you? Ambassador Lorvex's crystalline form vibrated with rage. The Galactic Council has maintained peace for 14,000 years. Has it? Or has it simply maintained the illusion of peace while real violence occurs in places we choose not to look? Varesh stepped down from the podium, moving into the central arena. I've spent the last 3 weeks studying our history. Do you know how many times the Council has intervened to stop genocide in the last 1,000 years? 0. How many times we've enforced our own settlement accords when powerful species violate them? 0. How many times we've prioritized justice over convenience? You can count them on one appendage regardless of how many you have. So what's your alternative? Dexter demanded. Anarchy? Dissolution? Real reformation, not incremental adjustments. Baresh looked around the chamber, meeting as many eyes as possible. I propose we dissolve the current council structure and rebuild it with enforceable laws, transparent processes, and actual consequences for violations. I propose we create a system that serves species rather than itself. I propose we make the council worth believing in again. The silence that followed was absolute. Then someone laughed. Senator Krill's translator converted his species' amusement into a sound like breaking glass. You propose destroying 14,000 years of tradition for an idealistic fantasy? Absurd. Is it? Humanity managed to create functional democracy on their homeworld in just a few centuries. The Cordy Dominion restructured our entire government 5,000 years ago when the old system failed our people. Change is possible if we're brave enough to attempt it. And if we refuse? Lorvex asked. Then the council will continue its slow decay. More species will leave. More Saras will die. And eventually this chamber will sit empty while the galaxy moves on without us. Varesh paused. Or you can remove me from power, silence this discussion, and pretend everything is fine. That's probably the most likely outcome. Texer moved toward her, his expression unreadable. Your Majesty, I'm calling for an immediate vote on your removal from the Council for seditious disruption. Seconded, Krill added. She'd expected this. Then vote. Representatives cast their decisions electronically, the results tabulated in real time. Varesh watched the numbers climb. 60-2 in favor of her removal, 19 opposed, 6 abstaining. More than enough for the two-thirds majority required. The motion passes, Thexar announced. Queen Varesh, you are removed from the Galactic Council effective immediately. You have 1 hour to vacate the premises. Zekmora and the Royal Guard closed ranks around her. But Varesh held up one hand, stopping them. I accept the Council's decision. But before I leave, I want each of you to understand what you've chosen. You've voted to maintain a system that you know is broken because change is frightening. You've chosen comfort over courage. And when history judges this moment, it will remember not my removal, but your cowardice. She turned and walked toward the exit, her guard forming up around her. Behind her, the chamber remained silent. No one spoke. No one moved. They simply watched as the Queen of the Karathi Dominion left the council chamber for the last time. In the corridor outside, Maya-san waited. Somehow she'd learned what Varesh planned and traveled from Earth to witness it. That was spectacular, the human said quietly. And completely futile. Was it? Varesh smiled tiredly. I didn't expect to change the council today. I expected to plant seeds. Seeds take time to grow, then we'll water them. The Queen continued walking, her mind already racing ahead. Representative Sung, how would you like to help build something new? Not a replacement for the council. Something better. Something that actually keeps its promises. Maya studied her carefully. You're talking about a competing organization. I'm talking about an alternative. Species who want real justice, real enforcement, real accountability. We start small, prove the concept works, and let others join when they're ready. The council will fight you. They'll use economic pressure, political isolation, possibly even military force. Let them. They can't fight an idea whose time has come. Varesh stopped, turning to face Maya directly. Your daughter believed in Tal Shara. The weight of responsibility. I failed her once. I won't fail her memory now. Will you help me? Maya's eyes glistened. Sarah would have liked you, Your Majesty. They stood in the corridor as Unity Station continued its endless rotation, billions of beings conducting their lives unaware that the foundations of galactic governance had just shifted beneath their feet. Varesh had lost her position. She'd likely lose her crown when she returned home and explained what she'd done, but she'd gained something more valuable. Purpose. The stars outside the station windows burned with ancient light, and somewhere among them, humanity watched to see if anyone else would finally understand what they'd been trying to teach all along. The next morning, 17 species formally announced their withdrawal from the Galactic Council. The exodus had begun. Sonnet 4-5.